Normally on Chicago and ChiWhoBike, we try to cover the positive aspects of biking in Chicago, the joys, the freedom, financial savings. But today, we're out covering a rally that's been going on weekly on Archer Avenue in Chicago's Brighton Park neighborhood on the southwest side. This bike lane has become pretty contentious, with opponents coming out weekly to advocate against it, and it may have even launched an aldermanic campaign. So we're out here to see what the project is about and to talk to some advocates who are encouraging this project to keep moving forward and to keep adding protected bike lanes to Archer Avenue. But unfortunately, all of this is taking place on a backdrop of tragedy. Just yesterday, in the early hours of Sunday, April 5th, a few miles away from here, south, a driver ran a red light and hit Damian Gomez, 18, striking and killing him, and also hitting another SUV where a 60-year-old woman was injured. The driver then fled to the scene. Damian was doing a delivery job. He was trying to make money for his family, and now he's no longer with us. We're going to link to his GoFundMe page to support the family in this time and funeral expenses in the description below. So what is Archer Avenue? Archer is a 4-lane road with 2 lanes of parking that served as an arterial, a diagonal cutting through Chicago's southwest side. And it used to be part of Route 4 in the 1920s, but in the 1960s was replaced by the Stevenson Expressway, just a bit north of here. Archer Avenue is a great example of what some urban planners, starting with Chuck Marone from Strong Towns, call a strode. A connection that combines the aspects of a street and a road. What are those? Well, a street is a place. It's somewhere that you expect to see businesses and residences. People are going to stop, they're going to shop, they're going to do stuff. A road, on the other hand, is a high-speed connection intended to get cars through an area without stopping in between. A strode is a twisted hybrid. It combines elements of both while not serving either particularly well. So behind me, you can see businesses like a McDonald's, a barbershop, alderperson's office, and more, but also there's high-speed traffic. That means that although there's supposed to be shopping and maybe even residences, it's not really good at that. And in fact, the high traffic discourages shopping while the shopping discourages high traffic and speed. It's the best of neither. The goals of a street and a road are fundamentally at odds. You can't have a place where people want to be and high traffic going quickly. That's just not how things are. Wow, that guy was fast. If you think about your favorite street, whether in Chicago, like Clark Street in Lakeview, Wicker Park's Milwaukee Avenue, or 18th Street in Pilsen, what they have in common is that they're narrow. There's business on both sides, lots of pedestrian traffic, and because it's generally a pretty normal road, it's easy to cross. You see a business on the other side, you just go there. You can also walk and have a conversation with someone on the street. The road, on the other hand, has too much traffic for that to be pleasant. Cars are moving too quickly, it's too loud, too noisy, and frankly, a little terrifying if a lifted F-150 is driving past you at 40 miles per hour. It's not a place where you want to sit and dine al fresco. Roads, on the other hand, are meant for high-speed travel. You want people moving through. And that means that they're fundamentally hostile to pedestrians, bikers, and other micromobility. And other elements that are common on streets, like driveways for residences and businesses, slow down traffic. So they're really not ideal on a road. A road is kind of like a highway. You want things to be clean and simple so that people can move through quickly. So the fundamental question is, what type of place is Archer Avenue going to be? Do you want it to be a street or a road? We're going to chat with some folks who are out here advocating for Archer Avenue to become safer and to keep these protected bike lanes. But first, here's Future Victor with some background context on protected bike lanes and why this infrastructure really matters.
First, let's talk about the most important reason for putting in protected bike lanes: safety. Driving is one of the most dangerous things we do as Americans. And in 2024, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration found that there were 34,000 traffic fatalities on American roads. For context, that's almost as many people getting killed in just 1 year as live in Chicago's Loop, or 1/3 of the population of Naperville, a nearby suburb. Of those, nearly 1 in 5 were pedestrians, over 7,000 in 2023. Here in Chicago, traffic deaths so far peaked in 2021, with 186 fatalities. That means at that time, nearly every other day, someone was getting killed in a crash. 60 of those deaths were people walking, 11 were people biking, and 115 were other people in cars. 2025 showed significant improvement, with provisional data indicating that there was a decrease to 100 traffic fatalities that year. But that still means that 1 out of every 3 days, someone's died in a traffic crash. So how do protected bike lanes factor in? They just protect people biking, right? Not at all. In fact, robust evidence shows that protected bike lanes and other safe streets improvements make the road safer for bikers, drivers, and pedestrians. It's safer for everyone. Here's a quote from Streetsblog USA. After analyzing traffic crash data over a 13-year period in areas with separated bike lanes on city streets, researchers estimate that having a protected bike facility in a city would result in 44% fewer deaths and 50% fewer serious injuries than in an average city. That's incredible. But why is this? By narrowing the total width of a street, it goes from feeling like a highway to something more like a local road, where drivers intuitively slow down, making crashes both less likely and less deadly. Even the safest streets will have some crashes, but getting hit by a car going 20 miles per hour is very different than getting hit by one going 40 miles per hour. According to the US Department of Transportation, if you get hit as a pedestrian by a car going 23 miles per hour, there's only a 1 in 10% chance that crash is going to be fatal to you. But up the speed to 40 miles per hour, which is pretty common on some wider roads, that crash has a 50% chance of being fatal. That's a coin flip of whether you'll live or die. Opponents often claim that bike lanes hurt local businesses by impeding traffic and sometimes taking away parking, though not in this case. But that's not really backed up by evidence. Here's a quote from the nonpartisan site GovFacts. In New York City, after a protected bike lane was installed on 9th Avenue, local businesses saw retail sales increase by up to 49%, compared to just a 3% increase across the rest of Manhattan during the same period. While people who arrive by bike may spend less on a single trip, they tend to visit more frequently and spend more money overall per month than customers who arrive by car, according to some studies. That means bike lanes aren't hurting businesses, they actually have a chance of helping them, as you get more customers in who feel safer using other modes of travel. And lastly, people sometimes argue that bike lanes aren't worthwhile because not a lot of people bike in the area currently. But just like you can't predict the use of a bridge based on how many people are swimming across a river, you can't really tell how many people will use a bike lane until it's installed. Not surprisingly, studies show that after the installation of a protected bike lane, usage of micromobility, including bikes and scooters, goes up dramatically. To cite one example from Streetsblog USA, quote, "The League of American Bicyclists, working with the micromobility outfit Lime, recently reported a whopping 207% increase in shared bike and scooter trips along corridors where the city of Baltimore had installed new protected bike lanes. Here in Chicago, we have seen huge increases in bike ridership, visible both in surveys and through Divvy and Lime usage. In 2024, the city broke 11 million micromobility trips on Divvy and Lime scooters. And just a year later, in 2025, they broke 13 million, a 20% increase. That's record year-over-year growth that's followed after building a number of protected bike lanes across the city. And if someone tells you nobody bikes in winter, just send them our winter biking video or one of our interviews with people biking around Chicago in winter. People bike in winter, and these days, winter just isn't as cold as it used to be, so that's no excuse for not building bike lanes. Now back to the project at hand. What's being built on Archer Avenue, and why? Since 2023, CDOT has been working on improvements to Archer Avenue because it is a very high crash corridor. This particular project covers Archer Avenue from 47th Street to Western Avenue and Kedzie Avenue from Archer Avenue to 28th Street. In their project fact sheet, CDOT lays out some shocking statistics. They found that 80% of Brighton Park residents experienced dangerous driving in their neighborhood, and 2/3 say that dangerous driving and a lack of pedestrian and bike infrastructure was their biggest obstacle to getting around. They also mentioned there are 47% more crashes and 33% more injuries in Brighton Park than the average community area. Unfortunately, just from 2019 to 2023, 14 people were killed in crashes in Brighton Park. They also mentioned that people walking make up only 2% of crashes in Brighton Park, but make up 11% of the injuries and 50% of the fatalities. They also mentioned something really interesting. Over 70% of the drivers causing crashes in Brighton Park don't come from the neighborhood. In fact, half of drivers who hit someone walking or biking don't even live on Chicago's southwest side. These all come from CDOT's Traffic Safety in Brighton Park fact sheet, linked in our sources down below. CDOT also has an extensive 6-page FAQ about the project, which gives more details about the specific types of crashes that they're trying to prevent, including specifically crashes involving pedestrians. CDOT notes that many families have to cross Archer Avenue and Kedzie Avenue to get their kids to school, because many neighborhood schools have boundaries that cross these wide, high-traffic arterials. These include Nathan S. Davis Elementary, Calmecca Academy, and Madero Middle School, among many more. They also note that a shocking 40% of intersections along Kedzie and Archer don't have a crosswalk, and only 26% of intersections have a traffic signal at all. That makes it incredibly dangerous for families, especially kids, crossing to get to school. Archer and Kedzie Avenue were also both very wide roads in Brighton Park, some as wide as 80 feet across. CDOT mentions this too, saying, quote, "Across Chicago, wider streets see 17 times the number of crashes as narrower ones." They also mentioned, like we did, that wide designs encourage speeding, and that Archer Avenue had varying lane widths, potentially as lanes would narrow near an intersection when a left turn lane would get added and then widen back out. Drivers might not realize this and sideswipe each other. Or a driver would maneuver quickly trying to get around a vehicle in the left turn lane, also causing a crash. Lastly, the protected bike lanes. CDOT specifically mentions that a lot of scooter and bike riders were on the sidewalks on Archer and Kedzie. And who can blame them? On a 4-lane road like this, it's incredibly dangerous to be out on the road. Drivers are not expecting you, and they are going at an incredibly high speed. They specifically mentioned that these new protected bike lanes should bring scooter and bike riders off of the sidewalk and into the roadway in those protected bike lanes, freeing up the sidewalk for pedestrians and reducing conflicts there. And what about community input? In May of 2024, there was a private meeting with some community stakeholders and CDOT. And in June of 2024, there were 2 community meetings with Alderwoman Julia Ramirez's office and the City Department of Transportation. Lastly, there was a construction update meeting virtually in November of 2025. So this project has been in the works for a while and has had a lot of community input. So what are the improvements that they're actually making? Shorter pedestrian crossings with refuge islands and curb extensions, which should make it easier and safer for people to cross, especially those families that we talked about. Bus boarding islands, which reduce the need for buses to merge in and out of traffic and should keep buses moving more smoothly, as well as those concrete protected bike lanes, which should encourage more people to take bikes and scooters along the route and bring them off of the sidewalks and out of conflict with pedestrians. And lastly, left turn lanes, which should keep traffic moving more smoothly as drivers will no longer have to swerve around someone waiting to make a left. The city has a strong foundation for making these improvements. In their Brighton Park traffic fact sheet, they say that similar improvements on Clark Street yielded a 75% decrease in drivers traveling over 30 miles per hour, which, like we talked about, is safer, reduces the likelihood of crashes, and especially fatal crashes. On Milwaukee Avenue, crashes with injuries were cut in half after similar improvements were made. And about traffic. The city specifically mentions that although Archer was a 4-lane road with 2 lanes in each direction, because of those left turn lanes, in reality, it often acted like a regular 2-lane road. Drivers would have to go around someone waiting to make a left turn, and so essentially it was 1 lane in each direction anyhow. So the city actually predicts that traffic should stay about the same or maybe even improve as traffic patterns become more predictable. You can just keep going straight. You don't have to keep merging around people making lefts. Lastly, let's talk about something a little harder to predict, what's known as induced demand or induced traffic. If you've ever seen a highway that opens up and at first it's really not that busy, but then fills up with cars, that's induced demand. As you build more lanes on a road, studies find that traffic fills that missing space because at first that route is really low traffic and so it's faster to take that road. But then it fills up and it reaches equilibrium. So similarly, Archer Avenue becomes a little narrower and traffic does slow down, people will adjust and compensate. They'll find alternate ways to get around. Maybe instead of driving for 1 or 2 miles to get to the grocery store, they'll take that new protected bike lane or hop on a bus, which won't be merging in and out of traffic anymore. So although the road may get narrower, it's not really possible to say it'll cause traffic. In the same way that, unfortunately, expanding a highway doesn't solve traffic. The demand just changes, it moves around. People are flexible, and especially these days with GPS software, they'll always find the fastest route. And what's the current status? As of April 2026, when we're filming this, the project is in serious construction. A lot of parts have been completed, but there's still signage and paint to be done. And the city expects that it will be fully completed in summer of 2026. Now, let's get back to Archer Avenue and talk to some of the people advocating to keep these protections in place and going. Oh, hello there. This is not an ad. Not really. I want to thank you for watching ChiWhoBike. It takes a lot of time and labor to keep this project going. So if you appreciate the work we're doing, I'd ask you to become a member. You can become a member for as low as $6.99 a month and get exclusive access to videos early, vote on upcoming topics, and more. And you'll also be helping us pay for the gear, video editors, software, and a whole lot more that makes this project happen. We might also be working on some exclusive stickers for members. 2024, US automakers spent a whopping $12 billion on advertising. So we're hoping with just a tiny fraction of that amount, we can help show America the beauty of biking. So whether you become a ChiWhoBike member, give a super thanks on a video, subscribe and share with a friend, or anything in between, I thank you for your support. Now, back to the video.
All right, so we are out at Archer Avenue at a weekly Safe Streets rally that's been going on for how long now?
17 weeks now.
17 weeks. And I may say, today's a pretty decent day, but you've been out here like super freaking cold.
Yo, it's been negative 20 degrees, negative 10, 0, 10, 20, 30, all of it. We've been out here.
Okay, fantastic. So first of all, can you tell me your name? Can you tell me a little bit where we are? and where you're from to start with.
Definitely. My name's Alfredo Valadares Jr., and I lead Gage Park Cyclists. We're from the neighborhood of Gage Park. I am, at least. The majority of my group comes from Gage Park. I have riders from Brighton Park, McKinley, West Lawn, also in the mix. So we're definitely off on the southwest side.
Yeah, fantastic. And what is going on here? You know, like, I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but what is this project? Why is it important, and why are you guys out here?
So what's happening right now is there's two projects on Archer. The first one is the Safe Streets Improvement Project for Archer Avenue, which is installing new safety infrastructure, including bump outs. There's a protected bike lane. There's additional signs at intersections and additional paint at crosswalks. The second project, which is the biggest project, is a sewer main construction project that's taking place. That's what's bringing the most frustration to the neighborhood. It's literally starts from Pershing to past California. It makes everybody go in a straight line. There is no turning left. So that adds to people's frustrations.
Yes.
So right now there's a group of people that's literally harnessing that frustration, and they're running a campaign against the safety of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We're out here because we believe that everybody does deserve an equitable commute. Everyone should be able to travel freely and make it home safely. And they say that I don't know what they say.
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in their mouth, but they're running against the safety of the neighborhood, and we're out here advocating for it. So we've been out here for 17 weeks. We'll keep being out here until they decide they're done. And then after that, we do want to continue being out here with a presence in Brighton Park. We're going to have a weekly ride coming out of Brighton Park. We're going to be connecting our neighborhoods, and we're going to be just riding on the southwest side all summer long. So.
Yeah.
Look to see more of us out here.
Fantastic. If people like don't know what a protected bike lane is, or just like, just ride in the road, why does this matter? Why do we need this infrastructure? Why do you feel we need this infrastructure?
Well, I feel that we need this infrastructure because paint on the floor does nothing to protect people. Concrete does. These concrete barriers, that's the purpose of these bike lanes here in this project. They're being added to add space between the pedestrians on the sidewalk and the traffic on the street. So I feel it's a good thing. It gives riders a place to ride safely, and it gives pedestrians more space away from cars. So that's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll show some shots behind here, but it's like, if I'm a pedestrian, did it used to be like parking here, or was this
parking? 4 lanes, 2 were for traffic, 1 was for parking. And it was just a mess. I mean, plenty of older folks had a hard time crossing the street.
Yeah.
I would imagine people with disabilities don't have an easy time crossing 4 lanes of traffic, especially when those lanes of traffic are not being considerate to people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's like, yeah, if you need to, you can get into the island now if you're jaywalking, which I wouldn't recommend,
Right.
or just in general. It looks like cars are going a little bit slower. They're not going to go as fast when it's not as wide.
And funny enough, the protesters, they acknowledge that safety because that's exactly where they stand. They stand on those islands, those pedestrian refuges, because they understand that it does provide safety. So not sure why they're out here advocating against it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else you want to say about this project or being out here or anything like that?
Just bike safety in general. I mean, everyone just needs to be considerate of the fact that bicycles are not cars. They're not 4,000, 6,000 pound vehicles. If a vehicle comes into contact with a bicycle, it's not going to be a good time for the bicyclists. Cyclists in general, they try to avoid cars. We're not aiming for them. We don't want to come into contact with them. We want to have our own space. And I feel that it's good that the city's finally investing in that kind of infrastructure for everybody.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much. Fabulous. All right. Thank you. Fantastic. All right, well, Pookie, we've met before. Yeah. I've interviewed you before, but can you tell us a little bit your name and where you are from relative to this spot here?
Okay, so my name's Pookie. Everybody knows me in the bicycle community as Pookie. And I bike, this is Archer Avenue, and the new bike lanes that they just installed are from Archer and Western to Archer and 47th, which is probably about 1.5 miles. And I'm closer to 47th and Archer, which is like 1.5 miles. And Archer is like my backyard, so I get to see all everything that goes on in here and hear of all the accidents. We hear late at night, we hear the cars revving their engines, running through here, and I'm just happy that they installed this infrastructure, and I feel lucky that our neighborhood was. I don't know if it was selected, but whoever planned it, I think it's good.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I'm not gonna name names, but I just saw a car going by and the lady had the phone right in her hand. Yeah. I was like, yeah, that's not ideal.
That's one of the things too that you have to contend with now is people on the phones, people on GPS, people, Ubers picking people up, dropping people off. It's like just more traffic and like I said before, it's not people aren't that used to it on the south side.
Yeah.
And it's kind of new, so my thing is just to give it a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a little bit, why do you think this infrastructure is important? Sometimes I hear people who don't bike and they're just like, I just go in the street, act like a car, be cool. Yeah. Why does that not make sense in this particular situation?
In this situation, because Archer Avenue, especially, like before the bike lanes were even done, and like I was born and raised in Brighton Park, I would run Archer all the time. The cars don't know that they're supposed to give you 3 feet by law. So they try and squeeze in beside you on either side, and you're stuck. If you're on a bicycle, you're stuck in the middle, and it's a 3,500 pound, 5,000 pounds against a little bicycle. And I just think it's a lot better now with the bicycle lanes that are going to be implemented. Once they're completed, like right now, it's the traffic due to the construction that's going on over there because they're putting new sewage lines and everything. But once that's done, that stretch right there is going to be more bicycle lanes. And once the paint is down and everything, I'm hoping it'll save lives. I mean, it's unfortunate to bring up, but an 18-year-old just got killed days ago. Yeah. Which we're going to do a ride today to the location to just offer some kind of support. But I mean, I'm not saying if there was bicycle lanes there, it could have saved his lives, but who knows? The car ran into him.
Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. And what would you say, there's been a lot of opposition or coverage of opposition to this project. What would you say to people who are opposed, who are like, oh, well, but there's traffic, it's a 4-lane road, I've heard the claim, streets should be for everybody, so don't put in the protected bike lane. What would you say to someone who's saying that?
What I would say to that is, like, first of all, like I keep saying, you have to give it a try. If it doesn't work, then I'll go with you and say, hey, you know what, we're gonna have to think this through and redo it or whatever. But we have to give it a chance first. And as far as like the implementing lanes or taking away lanes, there's 2 lanes, they were always packed. There was always traffic. If you put 3 lanes, they're gonna be packed. If you put 4 lanes, you put 6 lanes, they're gonna be packed. Everybody's gonna try and just keep moving forward, So it's I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference. Once the timing on the lights is changed and it's a 1 lane, you're gonna be able to time how long it's gonna get you from point A to point B, because nobody's gonna be trying to squeeze in front of you. Nobody's gonna be trying to move to the side. Everybody's gonna be moving along at the same pace. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even like doing research on this, I was reading about Archer, and they're like, yeah, and Archer as an arterial was replaced by the Stevenson, which is right over here. So, like, it feels like, well, we already built a highway, like, not far from here. And is that, I'm not from here, so can you explain, is that, like, covering a similar path? Do people here use Archer to avoid the highway? Like, what's kind of the difference there?
People definitely use Archer to avoid the highway because it'll take you to the west suburbs and it'll take you to the southwest suburbs. So, the highway gets packed, you're going to trickle off, you're going to run Archer. And then once you run on Archer, if Archer's packed, you're going to trickle off and you're going to go down side streets and you're going to keep going. So yeah, but definitely that's a good point because, I mean, if you want, ideally, you're supposed to use the Stevenson,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hopefully, when the summer comes and everything's down, the paint's down and everything's implemented and they can see that it is working. And I want to see the statistics that, lives are being, because Archer and Kedzie are proven to have the most fatalities and accidents for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Yeah.
And that's the change that I want to see.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a really dangerous road. And I think that's one of the reasons it was chosen, is they were like a very dangerous road. To cover one last thing, what do you say to like business owners? Because that's the other thing I hear all the time about bike lanes. And, you know, as a cyclist, I'm like, well, you know, this is more pleasant to walk in, frankly, right? It looks like, okay, I have some room, I have some breathing room. There's not a car right up against me or, you know, close to my parked car. What would you say to people who are like, oh, you have these protected bike lanes, traffic's going to be worse, and all the businesses are going to shut down?
No, I don't. I think it's going to be the opposite. Businesses, I think, are going to flourish more because people are going to come out to the community. They're going to feel safer. They're going to feel safer to bike, to walk. A lot of, I was talking to the Alderwoman, and we didn't even realize there's a public parking space up by Archer and Kedzie that people just forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
So the businesses that are complaining about parking spots right there, not even just across the street, there's a completely big public parking spot free that they can park there and come out and walk to all the businesses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I'm not seeing a whole lack of parking. I mean, there's like a business here behind us that has a pretty big parking lot. There seems to be a lot of parking out here.
There's parking. I'm not gonna say a lot of parking, but once everything's said and done and put down, they're gonna see, you know, like I said, there's a lot of spaces to put public parking and stuff like that, and people, they're gonna see the community's gonna come out.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing a safety bicycle workshop to get the community to come out, and I'm gonna teach them how to use and be safe in the bicycle lanes.
Fantastic.
And,
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. All right, fabulous. So first of all, thank you for joining me. Can you tell me your name and where you are relative to where we are right now? Like how far away?
Yeah, I go by DJ Greedy, and I'm from Little Village, Chicago. That's probably about half a mile away from here.
Okay, so super close. Why are you out here today? Why does this project matter to you?
I mean, it's all about the quality of life. I mean, bicycle lanes save lives, and I think everyone deserves, you know, a way to get from one neighborhood to the other. You know, growing up, I'm 50 years old, so growing up, you know, I've had family that lived on this side of the river, and I was unable to, you know, get over here because there was no bike lanes, and now it's like super easy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it's already, even though it's under construction, it's like changed how you move through the neighborhood. Let me ask, how do you primarily get around Chicago? And do you own a car? Because I think that's a common thing people think.
Yeah, I own a car, but I used to own an 8-cylinder SUV, and then I downgraded to a 4-cylinder, and that's what I have now. But I try to avoid driving it as much as I can. You know, if I could take the bus, if I could walk, if I could ride my bicycle, that's my primary way of getting around.
Yeah, fantastic. And what would you say to people who might be opposed to this project, who, you know, are complaining about traffic, who just don't get it? What would you have to say to them who maybe don't understand the vision here?
I mean, again, bicycle lane saves lives, you know, so unless, you know, you've actually ridden a bicycle, then you really shouldn't judge anyone. But, you know, I think as a taxpayer, you know, you have a right to get from point A to point B. But again, it's all about the quality of life. And unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure here on the south side like we do have in other neighborhoods. And I think we should give this an opportunity, and let's measure the data and see how things can work out in the future. You know, maybe, you know, we can eliminate both lanes, 1 lane, 4 lanes. I mean, you know, let's see what the data says in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Anything else I didn't ask you about that you want to mention?
No, just please, just be patient out there, and you know, look around you, be aware of your surroundings, and thank you for being patient with everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If you can give me your name and where do you live relative to this project and where we are now?
I'm Ben W. I'm from northwest suburbs, so I'm a bit away from here, but I'm going to move to the city, and I'm going to college at UIC for urban planning.
Okay, very cool. So very, very related profession. Why are you out here today, and why does this matter to you?
Because I'm a biker. I commute. I bike for commuting. I bike for enjoyment, and I don't want to die biking, and I don't want anyone else I know or anyone else to be in danger as they are now, as we've seen with all these deaths that have happened recently with people biking and walking.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say to people who are opposed to this project? Because there's been a lot of, you know, let's say negative feedback coverage about this project, traffic, concerns like that. What do you say to people who are like, hey, you know, you can't take away a lane of car traffic?
I mean, first of all, I'd like to point out the construction down there is not the bike lanes. That's a different project with the water and sewer area. So blaming that on the bike construction is irrelevant. Also, I mean, bike lanes are good for everyone. They're good for the people on the sidewalks. They protect them. They're good for the street calming. They're going to revise this area as well, some I know, to make it so that there isn't like the traffic going into McDonald's. And I mean, just it's better for everyone. And I mean, I just appeal to the humanity of do you want your like fellow people to be killed while biking when they're just trying to get home or just make some money, doing DoorDash or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I think you're mentioning like there was a kid killed, I think literally Sunday morning, like 2 a.m. He was hit and was doing delivery rides. So it's definitely a real live issue. Cool. Is there anything else I didn't ask you about that you want to mention about this project or biking or anything like that?
I don't know, just go out biking. I mean, just go bike. It'll feel really nice. It's good for breathing. It's good for everything. It's good for your health. It's
Cool.
fun.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Since we went out and filmed in April, there's been a few updates to the project that we want to make sure we cover as this video is getting wrapped up. First of all, on May 1st, the 12th Ward and CDOT announced some updates to the project. The changes were relatively minor, including reopening some streets to turns, like 38th Street onto Archer, adding back some parking spaces, and some general traffic flow changes. The protected bike lane is fully kept in place, and no pedestrian refuge islands are being removed. And the city projects that work on these revisions will finish at the end of May. There was some confusion in press coverage around these updates, with some initial reporting suggested that the protected bike lane was being removed altogether or parts of it were being removed, but these were quickly refuted by the 12th Ward office and updates were made. The Chicago Tribune editorial board also put out an interesting opinion piece about the project. We were disappointed that they didn't talk about the safety improvements that this project was trying to achieve, as well as the statistics that the city used to back up the improvements, but we'll let you read it for yourself. We also asked for comment on the project and the revisions from 12th Ward Alderwoman Julio Ramirez. We're going to put the full comment up here on screen, so pause to read it all, but we're only going to read about half just for the sake of time. From Alderwoman Ramirez's comments. The Complete Streets project is designed to support safer travel for all modes of transportation while delivering long-term improvements along the Archer corridor. As leaders in the 12th Ward, we have a strong responsibility to ensure infrastructure decisions remain focused on practical outcomes, not political considerations, and that they create safer streets with expanded transportation options for the entire community. The revised plan focuses on 3 key priorities: improving traffic flow, enhancing pedestrian safety, and expanding parking availability. These updates respond to long-standing community concerns while preserving the integrity of the overall project. At the same time, recognizing that this is a working-class community and a designated truck route, the revisions do not prioritize cut-through truck traffic at the expense of neighborhood safety. Community voices remain central to this process. All input is valued as we work toward a shared goal, creating safer, more accessible streets for everyone, regardless of how they travel. There also have been a few fun events on the project corridor to promote people biking on the new protected lanes. On April 18th, the 12th Ward office, along with partners including Chicago's Safe Ambassadors, Divvy, and Working Bikes, held a bike ride and resource fair to spread bike safety knowledge and make people aware of the changes. After all, this project creates the first protected bike lane on the southwest side and connects Brighton Park and Little Village by bike safely for the first time. Then, on Sunday, May 2nd, was the first of a set of weekly rides being put on by the organization Southwest Collective. We're going to show the rest of the rides here on screen. We'd encourage you to follow them on social media and join on one of the upcoming rides. So now you know a lot more about the Archer Avenue Bike Lane project and why it went in. You've heard some stats from the city, some national research about safe streets, and some perspectives from on the ground. We want to give a huge thank you to everyone who spoke to us for this video and gave their local perspective. We're sure there's also some stuff we didn't cover, because this video is already getting pretty long. So what do you think of this project? And is there something we missed? Let us know in the comments down below. And if you have ideas for future videos, let us know that too. Thanks for watching. And of course, if you appreciate our work, consider giving us super thanks, becoming a member, or just like, subscribe, and share with a friend. See you next time, and enjoy this incredible spring weather that we've been getting if you're out in Chicago. Happy biking.